प्रपद्ये प्रणवाकारं भाष्यं रङ्गमिवापरं परस्य ब्रह्मणो यत्र शेषित्वं स्फुटमीक्ष्यते. This Mangala Shloka captures the glory of Bhagavad Ramanuja's Sri Bhashyam, which is a definitive commentary on the Brahma Sutras. After having discussed in detail the principle of Tyaga, Sanyāsa, from Shlokas 1 until 12 in the 18th chapter, Krishna then takes up the foundational topic for any sadhana, Kartritva Tyaga. Shlokas 13 to 17 are very critical for us to understand the what, the why, and the how of Akartritva Anusandhana. We have seen the discussion on Akartritva Anusandhana begins way back in the 3rd chapter and continues throughout the Gita. Krishna keeps on expanding Arjuna's perspective on karma and dharma, and in that process gets deeper and deeper into the principle of kartritva and akartritva. Now in the last 2 shlokas, 13 and 14, Krishna gives his definitive conclusion on Akartritva Anusandhana. Akartritva Anusandhana is the principle of non-doership. The principle of non-doership, the Tyaga of Kartritva, renunciation of Kartritva, doership. While Krishna has given us his definitive conclusion, we still have many questions in our mind. Even right from the 3rd chapter, as we started discussing this principle of non-doership, we have been continuously riddled with some questions for which answers are not very easy. Because this principle of non-doership is not easy to comprehend, leave alone implement. We have several questions still that we possibly want more clarification. If Bhagavan has to be considered as the ultimate doer, Ishvare Kartrita Buddhihi, Ishvare Kartrita Buddhihi, ascribing our Kartritva, the doership, to Ishvara, Krishna. If Krishna is the ultimate doer, then is he not responsible for all my wrong deeds? This is one question which we want a clear answer. If Bhagavan is the ultimate Karta, and we know that he is the Jagat Karana, the Sarva Karana, the Akhila Karana, then is he not responsible for all the inequalities that prevail in this world? Shouldn't he own up, be accountable for all the inequalities? Now, I also understand that my actions are influenced by my birth, by my body, by my mind, by my intellect, by situations, circumstances, by my environment. I understand this now. If that is the case, should Bhagavan not be the culprit for all my deeds? When I understand that the kartritva, the doership, has to be ascribed to Prakriti as Krishna recommends, to the gunas of Prakriti, then when I am told that the actions, the cause for actions is the body, whereas the cause for experience is the Atman, isn't it unfair? Why should I experience pain when the cause is not me? Another question also that comes to our mind. If I am Karta and if I have a free will, how free is my free will? Am I an independent doer? If I have free will, then I have to be independent. Now, is my independence real or is my independence false? Am I a Swatantra Karta or am I not a Swatantra Karta? Too many questions. Now, all of these questions hinge upon something which is fundamental, which is our search to find reasons to escape responsibility. Ultimately, we are finding ways and means of escaping responsibility. But then, these questions are also fair for us to get a lot more clarity on this non-doership. Because without clarity on akatritva anusandhana, it is not possible to progress smoothly on the path on the spiritual path. So that is the reason why Krishna spends between shlokas 13 and 17 on clarifying on the principle of akatritva, non-doership. And I also thought it is appropriate for us to take the help of the Brahma Sutras and understand the principle of non-doership. And that is why I started the session with the Mangala Shloka that glorifies Sri Bhashya, which is a definitive commentary on the Brahma Sutras of Badarayana Vyasa. 15th Shloka is very interesting because it further kindles us to ascribe responsibility to Bhagavan for everything, for all our commissions and omissions. Sharira vang manobhiryat karma praravate naraha nyayam va viparitam va panchayite tasya hetavaha. Sharira vang manobhiryat karma prarabhate naraha nyayam va viparitam va panchayite tasya hetavaha. Now, Krishna here classifies, categorizes action. Any action can fall under three categories, any of the three categories. Kayika, Vachika, Manasika. Any action falls in one of these three categories. So therefore Krishna says, Sharira Vang Manobhiryat. Whatever be the action that is carried out with the body, the Sharira, with one's speech, the faculty of speech, and one's faculty of mind, whatever be the action. Nyayam va viparitam va. What is nyayam and viparitam? Nyayam, nyaya, which is right, which is aligned with dharma, which is as per what the Shastras teach. The Shastras talk about right actions. They prescribe what are the things to do and what are the things not to do. So actions that are nyayam are those which are exactly as per the Shastras. correct actions, right actions, dharmic actions, aligned with the laws of dharma. Viparitam va. Viparita is exactly opposite. Those actions which are not aligned with the injunctions of the Shastras. Those actions which are fundamentally wrong, against dharma, wrong deeds. Nyayam va, viparitam va. Virtuous actions, vicious actions. Good actions, bad actions. Now, these are only two possibilities. Any action either can be virtuous or vicious. Can be aligned with dharma, can be misaligned with dharma. Whatever be the action, whether it is good or bad, Krishna says, Shariram Vang Manobhiryat. Karma prarabhate naraha. Any action that is initiated, karma prarabhate naraha. Whether it is good or bad, right or wrong, panchaite tasya hetavaha. For all of those actions, there are 5 causal factors. What are those 5 causal factors? Adhishtanam tata karta karanam cha pratak vidam vividhas cha pratak cheshta daivam chaivatra panchamam. We saw in the 14th Shloka, Krishna listing out the 5 causal factors. Adhishtanam, the body. Karta, the jivatma. Vividhas, adhishtanam tata karta karanam cha pratak vidam. Karanam cha pratak vidam. The various karmendriyas along with the manas, the mind. Vividhascha pratak cheshta, the pancha pranas, daivam, Bhagavan, Paramatma, Sri Krishna, the antaryami in each and every one. These are the 5 causal factors for any kind of action. So here Krishna is further reiterating that and says, whatever be the action, nyayam va viparitam va, whether it is right action or wrong action, tasya hite panchaite tasya hetavaha. Immediately now we find a loophole. So which means even for wrong deeds, Krishna is responsible. He himself has admitted this now. I have been waiting for ages to find out the reason for why I do wrong deeds. Now I have the answer. See? He himself said, Nyayam va viparitam va. So the question that immediately we ask is, if Bhagavan is one of the causal factors, and he is not just one of the causal factors, he is Mukhya Karana. Because here in this segment of the 18th chapter, Krishna is further emphasizing the primacy of his doership. That is why Ishvare Katrita Buddhi. That is the first important topic within the 18th chapter. If he is the primary doer, then Nyayam va viparitam va panchaite tasya hetavaha, then he has to stand up and take responsibility. Hey Krishna, you better own up. Why should I be accountable? Then we also have this question. Look at this whole world filled with inequalities. So many differences. You are the Jagat Karana, you are the Akhila Karana, you are the Sarva Karana. So therefore, you are also the Karana for all the inequalities that I see here. All the bad things that are happening. The world is filled with good, bad and ugly. So therefore, you should be the reason, you should be the cause for all these inequalities as well. Now Krishna has already given this answer way back before. But possibly we also need some refreshing. Now, Badarayana, Vedavyasa in the Brahma Sutras clarifies. He says, Vaishamya Naigranyena Sapekshatvat. This is a sutra. Now Vedavyasa, after having codified the Vedas, classified them, organized them, and he decided to clarify the Vedanta, the Upanishads. And for the sake of clarifying the fundamental theme of the Upanishads and to reconcile the various apparently contradictory statements of the Upanishads, he wrote the Brahma Sutras, hoping that the Brahma Sutras will give us all the required clarification. But the way the sutras are, every sutra is a short statement, a short succinct statement, loaded with profound wisdom. No, Vyasa did not expect that we will all struggle to understand the sutra. So these sutras, Brahma Sutras needed. The Brahma Sutras together with the Upanishads and the Gita form what is celebrated as Prasthanatraya. Foundational to Sanatana Dharma. Prasthanatraya. Upanishads, Bhagavad Gita and Brahma Sutras together are celebrated as Prasthanatraya. Now, Brahma Sutras are, every sutra is short, succinct, loaded with wisdom, needs to be explained. So, various Mahacharyas have written detailed commentaries on these sutras for our sake. Badarayana, Vyasa is also called Badarayana because he is from Badrikashrama. Vaishamya Naigrinyena Sapekshatvad, he says. Vaishamya, partiality, Naigrinya, cruelty. He says, we cannot ascribe partiality and cruelty to Bhagavan. Why? Because he takes into consideration our karma. This is the sutra. Because when he engages in any activity right from creation, he takes into account, yes, he is the Karana, he is the cause of all causes, but he also takes into account the karma of each and every individual Jivatma. Nacha karmani, he says, Udasina Vadasina Asaktam Teshu Karmashu, Krishna says. Udasina Vadasinam Asakta Teshu Karmashu. Krishna explains that Udasinavat Asinam. I remain as Udasina, as a witness. Teshu Karmashu, Krishna clarifies. When anything is created, yes, Krishna, Bhagavan is Karana, but there is also another Karana. Krishna cannot be blamed of partiality and cruelty because when we look at Karana, there are two types of Karana. Samanya Karana, Visesha Karana. Samanya Karana, Visesha Karana. If an artisan makes different kinds of jewelry based on what is given to him by various people. One comes and gives gold, one comes and gives him copper, one comes and gives him bronze, one comes and gives him iron. He makes different pieces of jewelry. The inferiority or the superiority of the jewelry, the inequalities cannot be ascribed due to the partiality of the artisan. Now, when it rains, different seeds sprout into different plants and grow into different trees and end up giving different fruits. The sunshine, the rainfall are common, but if I sow a mango seed, I can only get a mango fruit. If I sow a jackfruit seed, I can only get a jackfruit. I cannot sow a jackfruit and then wait for a mango. The seed is the Visesha Karana. The rainfall is Samanya Karana. It is the same rain. Both the seeds are receiving the same rain. Even the earth, the soil is the same. But when the seed sprouts and grows and bears fruit, the fruits are totally different. So we cannot blame the rains and saying it's because of you, differences in the fruits. One is a jackfruit, other is a mango fruit. The rain is Samanya Karana, whereas the seed is Visesha Karana. Therefore, Vaishamya Naigrinya Sapekshatvad. Vyasa clarifies. Bhagavan cannot be ascribed. We cannot ascribe this partiality or cruelty to him because he looks forward to the karma of the individual. It is in accordance. So therefore, now we get an answer to this question, the inequalities, which also answer to the question that at the time of birth, each and every one of us, we get our own, a different body, different mind, different intellect, different resources, different environment. Therefore, the advantage or disadvantage of an individual is a result of the individual's karma, which is the Vishesha Karana. That cannot be ascribed. A disadvantage cannot be ascribed to Bhagavan, or even advantage cannot be ascribed to Bhagavan. Now, after having taken birth, all of us continue to do actions. Now, taking into account the principle of akartrutva anusandhana, non-doership. So when I do actions, I have to cultivate the attitude of non-doership. So which means ascribing doership to my body, ascribe it to the gunas of Prakriti, then immediately the question that I would have is, if that is the case, if the body is responsible for the actions and not the Atman, why should I experience the pleasures and the pains of the actions done with the body? Why should I? The pain and the experiences are mine, but the actions are to be ascribed to the body. The answer is also very clear. Akartrutva anusandhana, non-doership, is realization that I am not the sole doer. I am not the complete non-doer. Both are true. I am not the sole doer and I am not the complete non-doer. Now, when we get into a little bit of Vedanta, Vedanta speaks in this kind of a language. So we need a lot of attention to this topic to get a lot more clarity. So, akartrutva anusandhana is essentially realizing that I am not the only doer. I am the doer but not the only doer. My doership is contributory in nature. And therefore, Vyasa in the Brahma Sutras, he says, Karta Shastrartavatvad. Another sutra which explains why I am the Karta. Why the Jivatma is a Karta. Karta Shastrartavatvad. He says, every Jiva is a Karta because if the Jiva is not a Karta, the Shastra becomes meaningless. If the Jiva is not the Karta, the Shastras become meaningless. The Shastras say, Satyam Vada, Dharmam Chara. The Shastras are addressing to who? Who is being addressed by the Shastras? The Jiva. Because if the Jiva is not the Karta, then the whole list of to-dos and the whole list of not to-dos becomes irrelevant. Karta Shastrartavatvad. Badarayana clarifies, say, Jiva is a Karta. If the Jiva is not a Karta, then the injunctions of the Shastras become meaningless, become irrelevant. So therefore, Jiva has Kartrutva. But one needs to understand the nature of the Kartrutva. He is not a sole Karta. And he is at the same time not total Akarta. The Kartrutva is contributory in nature, participatory in nature. Now, immediately the question that we would have, if the Jiva has free will, with Kartrutva also means there is free will. With free will, am I an independent Karta or am I not an independent Karta? Do I have any freedom at all? Because also, from the 7th chapter onwards in the Gita, Krishna keeps drilling this point. Vayadhyakshena prakriti suvyate sacharacharam hetunanena kaunteya jagat viparivartate. I am the Adhyaksha of Prakriti. Hetunanena kaunteya jagat viparivartate. It is only because of my will. It is because of my will alone. Everything runs, everything functions. I am the one who supervises, who ensures the manifestation of Prakriti. I am the one who is not only responsible for creation, but for the functioning of this universe. Everything runs on my will, Krishna says. Matta parataram nanyat kinchidasti dhananjaya. Mai sarpamidam protam sutre maniganaiva. Ahamatma gudakesha sarvabhutate ashritaha. I am adischa madhyamcha bhutanam antayevacha. Sarvasya chaham hridisannivishtaha mattas pratigyanam admohanam cha vedaischa sarvai ahameva vedyaha vedantakrit veda videvacha aham. several declarations of Krishna throughout the Gita, right from 7th chapter. He keeps on saying, hey Arjuna, understand, I am the Niyanta, I am the Vibhu, I am the Sarvadhara, I am the Sarvaseshi. It is because of my will that everything runs. So if that is the case, then where is my will? If everything runs because of his will, what is the role of my will? Then what is my kartrutva? If everything runs because of him, also based on all these scriptural declarations, Badarayana adds another sutra. Paratu tatshutehe, he says. Paratu tatshutehe. As per the Shruti Vakyas, the kartrutva of Jivatma is subservient to Paramatma. The kartrutva of Jivatma is subservient to Paramatma. What does it mean? He is the controller. He is the controller who controls my kartrutva as well. A Jiva's kartrutva is under the adhinata of Paramatma, under his control. So if that is the case, and also in the Gita we see Krishna repeatedly talking about this, then immediately we have a question and we also are a little bit relaxed. Now we have the answer to everything that we, when it comes to our commissions and omissions. Because now we can say, Bhagavad Sankalpa, Krishna Sankalpa. I cannot come to satsang today, Krishna Sankalpa. As though Krishna wanted us not to come to satsang. Any commissions and omissions, answer becomes easy. Krishna himself said everything is Krishna Sankalpa, Bhagavad Sankalpa. I go and murder somebody, Bhagavad Sankalpa. Very easy. Because everything runs as per his will. Now, this is where, and Badarayana himself says, Paratu Tatshutehe. So, the individual kartrutva is subservient to Paramatma, is under his control, under his adhinata. But he also clarifies. What is important to understand, that Bhagavan, no doubt, is Sarvadhara, Sarvaseshi, Sarvaniyanta. It is his will that runs everything. He is the supreme controller, no doubt. But we also need to understand, when he is the supreme controller, he also grants us limited controllership. He is the supreme ruler, no doubt. He also grants us limited rulership, limited controllership, limited freedom, limited swatantriya, depending on the nature of our karma. Depending on the nature of the karma, the scope of our influence is also determined by him. Bhagavan gives us free will. We all have free will. That's a very unique human capability. Free will is something which is very unique to us. Bhagavan grants us this free will, no doubt. But when he grants us this free will, apart from granting us this free will, he also ensures that according to our karma, he also determines the sphere of our influence proportional to our karma. So therefore, the sphere of our influence over which we can exercise our will depends on our karma. Bhagavan governs the scope of our actions, but he does not control the specifics of our actions. Also, we need to know this subtle but significant difference between two things: Bhagavan's intention and Bhagavan's sanction. Intention and sanction. Because many times we ask this question: how did Krishna allow Draupadi to get disrobed? How can this happen? It is not Bhagavan's intention that Draupadi should be, but Bhagavan sanctioned. All actions, every action that happens, have to be sanctioned by him, but not necessarily desired by him. We need to know this difference. Every action happens only because he allows the action, but not necessarily because he desired those actions. He controls the scope, but he does not control the specifics of our action. That is why, Krishna, when we talk about the freedom, the free will, there is a sphere of influence. There is an area over which we can influence, we can exercise our free will, which is governed by Bhagavan. Now, in order to further clarify this and explain this, Badarayana in the Brahma Sutras clarifies, writes, Krita Prayatna Apekshastu. This is a beautiful sutra. This will clarify this, and the commentary to this in Sri Bhashya will give us complete clarity. Krita Prayatna Apekshastu. Bhagavan Krita Prayatna Apekshastu. Apeksha, looking forward, in accordance to. Yes, Bhagavan has given us the free will, the Kartrutva, the answer to whether we are Swatantra Karta or we are not Swatantra Karta. Yes, we are Swatantra Karta, we have limited freedom, no doubt. Now Bhagavan provides us this Krita Prayatna Apekshastu. Every action that is to be done, Bhagavan looks for our Prayatna. The Prayatna means effort, endeavor, volition, will. To put it very simply, we all have to understand that we have control in the sense that we have enough control that is given to us to choose who can control us. Let us put it in a very simple terms. We have been given free will, we have been given the power to control, a limited freedom, and this power to control is good enough to give us the control to choose our controller, who controls us. Now, Bhagavan looks forward to the Jiva's Prayatna. Krita Prayatna Apekshastu, Badarayana writes in Brahma Sutra. Based on the Prayatna, the endeavor, the volition, the will of the Jiva, then Bhagavan then supports and gets the action concluded. He is obviously the supreme controller, but even the supreme controller is not the sole controller. He also gives an opportunity to us to participate in the controllership. Now, we can further understand this by doing a deep dive, zooming in on this agency of action. How do we zoom into this agency of action? We can divide the agency of action into three phases. Phase 1, Phase 2, Phase 3. I need your complete attention on this, because this is profound and it will clarify all our doubts on this Akatrutva Anusandhana. What are the three phases? Adhya Pravritti, Dvitiya Pravritti, Tritiya Pravritti. Three phases, any agency of action. In the first phase, Adhya Pravritti, right at the beginning, the initiation of any action, Bhagavan acts as a Udasina. Dvitiya Pravritti, Bhagavan becomes a Anumanta. Tritiya Pravritti, Bhagavan becomes a Dyotaka. So he plays three roles. Udasina, Anumanta, Dyotaka. Who is a Udasina? A witness. Who is a Anumanta? One who sanctions, one who allows. Who is a Dyotaka? One who triggers, one who stimulates, one who leads, one who guides, one who controls. So which means within this agency of action, there are three phases. In the first phase, he is Udasina. In this phase, he gives us the Swatantriya. To initiation of any action, we have the will given to us to initiate the action. And when that action is initiated based on the will given to the Jiva, Bhagavan is a Udasina. He is witnessing how the Jiva is exercising his will. The jiva exercises the will, puts in the effort. This is the first stage. The limited freedom that is given is exercised here. Now, when we say the limited freedom is exercised here, immediately swatantrata that is given to the jiva, we need to also understand that this swatantrata, when the jiva is exercising and Bhagavan is udasina, witness, is not an ordinary witness. He also remains a cause. He is also a karana. The jiva is also a karana here. Again, samanya karana, vishesha karana. The vishesha karana is the jiva's will. Samanya karana is Bhagavan's will. This, just like another analogy, if you take a ruler of a kingdom, in order to promote business, the ruler of a kingdom will ensure that all roads are properly done, the harbors are properly built, every infrastructure that is required is all done, all resources are given, the supply and demand is properly maintained, and then he gives the framework of all the laws, and then a businessman, an individual businessman, then has to engage in doing the business aligned with the laws. So, the role of the ruler is samanya karana. The role of the individual businessman is vishesha karana. Taking that analogy. So, phase 1, similarly, Bhagavan, even though the jiva is swatantra in this phase, the swatantriya of the jiva is dependent on the Paramatma. How? Because how is the jiva exercising his free will? By using the power of free will, using his mind, using his intellect, and using his indriyas, using his body, and is engaging in the initial endeavor. Now, who has given all of this to the jiva? Just like how the ruler gives all the infrastructure and then expects the businessman to use the infrastructure. The jivatma is granted everything that is needed. The body, the indriyas, the mind, the intellect, the free will, and all the external resources that are needed to carry out every action. All that is required is with the jivatma, who is given this limited swatantriya, to understand that his swatantriya is dependent on the sarvadhara, the sarvaseshi, the sarvaniyanta, and together with his support, he is exercising his limited free will. This has to be very clearly understood. So this is the phase 1, adhya pravritti. Now here we are zooming in, and we are looking at the phase 1 of the agency of action. He remains a udasina. Now the jiva, exercising his free will, using the body, mind and intellect and all the resources available, initiates the action. Now once that happens, the phase 2, Bhagavan becomes a Anumanta. Because if only when he is a Anumanta, everything has to be sanctioned by him. Nothing happens without his sanction. Everything happens as per his sanction. So he becomes a Anumanta. He allows the action. He allows it to further continue. He becomes a Anumanta. And once he allows the action, then the third phase, he becomes Dyotaka. He not only now allows, he further stimulates, triggers, impels, prompts, controls, leads the action and take it forward into fruition. This is where we have a big question now. Is Krishna not partial? Because he seems to be partial to some and he is impartial towards others. On the one hand, Bhagavan has, in the eyes of Bhagavan, everybody is the same. The Shastras declare that he himself says, everyone is the same in the eyes of Bhagavan. No differences whatsoever. To him, there is no object of affection or aversion. For him, there is no hatred. Everybody is the same, equal. On the one hand, he declares this, and he also acts accordingly. On the other hand, Krishna himself says, when somebody worships me, I offer myself completely to them. This seems to be a paradox. There seems to be some problem here. Both are conflicting in nature. Bhagavan is partial. No. To understand this paradox, To understand this mysterious nature of Krishna, we need to realize that Krishna is not just a higher power. He is not just a higher impersonal principle. He is a loving, reciprocating person, a sentient person. He is Purushottama. He is not just Brahman and Paramatma, he is Purushottama. He loves and reciprocates our love. This is the beauty. He is not somebody who is just a high power, just a higher principle. This is very important to understand. The principle, when we say God, God is not just some higher power, some energy, some impersonal principle. God is a sentient person. He is also somebody who reciprocates our love. He would love to connect with us and exchange love with us. And when we realize this, then it becomes clear these two contradictions as to how everybody is equal to him, whereas he seems to have his own favorites. He seems to be favoring a few. Very simple. When, again going back to phase 1, Adhya Pravritti, when someone ignores him, exercising his free will, and completely ignores him and does something which is adharmic, he as a Udasina, he reciprocates by not intervening, by not interfering, and he lets his law of karma take its course. The law of karma is there. The lawmaker as a Udasina, he does not interfere. Now, when someone using that limited free will that is given starts to love him, attempts to connect with him, do something which is dharmic, then he immediately reciprocates by intervening, by showering his love, and by personally taking care. Etu dharmyamritamidam yatoktam paryupasate shaddadhanamat paramaha bhaktaste ativa me priyaha. Krishna says, Udhara sapa evete jnani tu atmaiva me matam astitasya hi yukta atma mameva manuttamam gatim. Krishna is very categorical. He says, Yogakshemam vahamyaham, he says. Ananyas chintayanto mam ejana paryupasate tesham nityabhiyuktanam yogakshemam vahamyaham. Krishna says, so therefore those who are devoted to him, those who stay connected with him all the time, and those who love him dearly, he intervenes, he reciprocates their love, and he ensures that he takes special care. He comes and personally protects. So therefore, to go back to the question, is Krishna partial? The answer is, yes, he is partial. He is partial to those who are devoted to him and who dedicate themselves to him, who consider him as the highest goal. But the beauty is, yes, he is partial to his bhaktas, but he also allows everyone to love him with no discrimination whatsoever. He is partial to his bhaktas, but also the beauty of Krishna is that he keeps the door of his partiality open to everyone. He is partial to his bhaktas, but he keeps the door to his partiality open to everyone, which means he is impartially partial. Anyone and everyone can knock, are invited to enter into his door and into his kingdom of partiality. So therefore, the question of Krishna being Anumanta and a Dyotaka, going back to our 3 phases in the agency of action. The first phase, Adhya Pravritti, Dvitiya Pravritti, Tritiya Pravritti. Krishna as Udasina. He witnesses as the action is initiated, and the Jivatma, using the limited Swatantra, exercising the free will, initiates the action. Krishna as Anumanta, Dvitiya Pravritti, he then sanctions that action. And then in the next phase, he becomes a Dyotaka. He starts to intervene So therefore now, if the action is dharmic in nature, if the Jivatma uses the free will that is given, initiates an action which is aligned with the Shastras, which is based on the principle of Dharma, which is in the form of a loving service to Krishna, then this process is clear. We have no questions. To that Bhakta, he becomes a Anumanta, he sanctions an action, and then he becomes a Dyotaka. He intervenes personally and takes care of doing everything for that Bhakta. But then the problem comes, what if when the Jivatma, using that limited Swatantriya, initiates a wrong deed, that which is against the Shastra, then what Krishna does in the succeeding phases? He is Udasina in phase 1. The Jivatma either uses his free will given to him, or because of the force of vasanas and force of karma, initiates an action which is adharmic, which is misaligned with the Shastras. Even then, as Anumanta, he sanctions the action. He lets the law of karma take its course. And then, when the law of karma takes its course, he remains a Udasina. Now, the question that we ask is, ultimately after all this, who is the Karta? Am I the Karta, or is Krishna the Karta? Once again, in a typical fashion of Vedanta, I am the Karta, Krishna is also the Karta. Krishna is the ultimate Karta, I am a contributory Karta, participatory Karta. Paramatma, he is Karta, and as Karta, he looks forward to my Prayatna, as the Brahma Sutra says. Krita Prayatna Apekshat. So, as a Karta, he expects my Prayatna, my effort, my will to be exercised properly. And I am a Karta whose Kartritva is dependent on Krishna. Because the only way I can execute my doership is by using all the resources given by him. So even my Kartritva is dependent on Krishna. That's how the debate on this Kartritva can come to an end by realizing that all the 5 factors, Panchaitani Mahabaho Karanani Nibhodame, Sankhye Kritante Proktani, Siddhaye Sarvakarmana, all the 5 causal factors are into play when it comes to initiation of every action, but Bhagavan is the Mukhya Karana. He is the ultimate Karta. That is why Ishware Kartrita Buddhihi. The Kartritva should be ascribed to Bhagavan. Now, towards the end of last session in the Q&A, there was a question asked, how do we now, in the context of our understanding of this Kartritva, the non-doership, how do we understand the famous Mundakopanishad? The famous Upanishad which declares the 2 birds perched on the branch of a tree. Dvasuparna sayuja sakaya samanam vriksham parishasvajate tayoranyah pippalam spadvat anashnan anyoho abhichakashiti. 2 birds, Upanishad beautifully, visually, graphically depicts 2 birds perched on the branch of a tree. And it says, one bird is constantly eating the fruits of the tree, some bitter, some sweet. And the other bird, which is glowing, which is just watching, being a witness. Obviously, we all know, we discussed this many times. The first bird, which is constantly eating the fruits of the tree, bitter and sweet, is the Jivatma, which is experiencing the karma phala. By constantly doing karma, it is experiencing karma phala. Sakama karma leading to karma phala, and it is experiencing, the Paramatma is witnessing this. Samane purusho nimagno shochati mukhyamanaha jushtam yada pashyati anyam isham asya mahimanamiti vita shokaha. The Upanishad says, the moment this Jivatma, this bird, which is full of sorrow, continuing to eat bitter and sweet fruits, which means experiencing good karma and bad karma, pain and pleasure, sorrow and happiness constantly, the moment it turns around and recognizes the Paramatma, realizes the Paramatma, not just sees, realizes, experiences the Paramatma, then all its sorrows come to an end then and there. The Paramatma is a Udasina. As long as this Jivatma is ignoring him and indulging in Kamya Karma with attachment to the world, immersed in worldliness, every action which is selfish in nature, which is Kamya Karma, which is attached to the world and attached to the results, attached to the body, Paramatma as Udasina keeps witnessing. Now, when this Jivatma realizes that the Paramatma is the Sarvadhara, Sarvaseshi, Sarvaniyanta, and then with that realization, it also understands that the little bit of free will that is given, going back to our definition of the control that we have, is good enough to choose our controller. We all have the power of control. This power of control is a unique faculty. This choice making, this exercising our free will is a unique faculty given to us. It is only given to us for only one reason: to make the right choice. We have only two choices. Am I controlled by my body and this world, or am I controlled by Krishna? This is the choice. We don't need to struggle with thousands and thousands of choices. We all think that life is full of choice making because every day we are making choices all the time. But ultimately, everything boils down to only two choices. Either I choose to be controlled by Krishna or I choose to be controlled by the world. So the moment I make the choice in that first phase, Adhya Pravritti, and when that choice, realizing that I am also a doer, so therefore I don't start blaming anybody or anything. I take accountability for every action because I have been given that unique faculty which no other living being has. So I take responsibility, I take accountability, and I exercise my free will by initiating every action to make the choice of being controlled by Krishna, recognizing him as the Sarvadhara, Sarvakarana, Jagatkarana, Sarvaseshi. Then Bhagavan not only is Hanumanta, he also becomes Dyotaka, and he ensures that he intervenes, interferes, he takes over control of everything. That is the analogy we concluded last time. He not only guides when we drive, he also starts driving himself. So there is no need, once again going back to the car analogy, there is no need for us even to drive. The moment we hand over everything with complete Shraddha to him, then we are on a choice ride all the way to Vaikuntha. So with 15th Shloka, Krishna further gives us clarity. Now this whole topic on Swatantra Karta or not Swatantra Karta and non-doership does not conclude here. We've got definitely, I hope, lot more clarity, but eventually when we go to Charama Shloka, our understanding of doership and non-doership will get even more deeper, but there are several months away. Until then, we continue to contemplate on how Bhagavan does everything possible for only one reason, that we eventually change our direction and start getting closer and closer to him. Sarvam Sri Krishna Arpanamastu.